Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. This is all about lighting and setup. The orange is lit to maximise the colour saturation and bring out the surface detail. The background colour has been chosen to be complementary to the subject, so together they have the effect of making the image pop. Okay, so let me show you what I've got set up so far. Here on the floor I've got a 2 by 2 softbox with a studio head in the back of it to provide the illumination. Now also within the softbox, on top of the studio head, I have a blue gel, and it's that blue gel which will form the background colour. So this will be the background to the subject. Okay, so on the camera I have a 24-70 zoom lens, and on the top of the camera I have this flash sync trigger. This is also capable of controlling the energy in the studio head. The camera itself is tethered into Capture One software. Okay, so the first thing to do would be just to compose the background in the viewfinder. So I'm just going to point the camera down at the softbox, zoom that in a little, just finely tune that, and we'll just take a test image with no flash just to get some idea of the contamination we're getting from the house lights. So there, at those settings, there is quite a lot of contamination from the house lights, as you can see. But this isn't what we're going to be using for the flash pictures. So to start with, I'll change the shutter speed to the flash sync speed for this camera, which is 1/250th of a second. And I don't intend to use 2.8 as the operating aperture. So I'll just move that up to, say, f4. And we'll take another test. So that's got considerably darker, but not quite there yet. So I don't think f4 is going to be good for the actual image. Let's try 5.6. There, that's much better. There is still a tiny amount of bleed, but nothing to speak of. Okay, so with that experiment out of the way, we can tell that at an aperture of 5.6, this should be dark enough for our use. So with that done, I can turn the flash on and we'll do a test and see what sort of colour we can get. So just at an arbitrary energy, we'll just fire off an image. And there, you can see that at that energy level, it's looking a little washed out. Yeah, so I think what we can do is take that down by about 5 stops, something like that. Okay, and we'll fire that again. Yes, now this is looking much nicer, much closer to the sort of density I want. I could possibly take it down a little bit more, but we'll see how we go. Okay, so the background's sorted for the time being. So the next thing to do is to build a platform around here somewhere so that I can put the subject on it. So what I've done is put a couple of these stands here, and I'm just placing a piece of glass on the top of that so that we can actually shoot through that at the background. It's always a good idea just to do a test once you've got everything in place, just to make sure that nothing has moved. So what I'm going to do is just get our subject and place it on here and just take a test picture. Here we are, here's our subject, the orange. And you can see from that it's actually out of focus. The thing which is in focus is the background softbox. So I'll just alter that and we'll just pull the focus so that we're focusing on the subject. So with that set, we'll take a picture. Okay, that's not looking too bad. So we can see the background blue, and you can see the part image of the orange, but obviously there's no light on that yet. Okay, so far so good. So the next thing I'm going to do is just use this old plastic tray underneath the orange here, so that when I come to start putting some water into this image, it doesn't actually go absolutely everywhere. So I'll just rearrange this ever so slightly, just like that, and recompose that in the viewfinder, and we'll just do a test with that in place. There we are. So with the tray in place, you can see there are a few other artifacts turning up from time to time, some dust and bits and pieces, but I don't think any of that will matter. Okay, so the next stage would be to light the orange. Here we are. I'm just going to put this other flash head in here so that it illuminates the orange from the top side down here. So we'll just give that a bit of a test. Probably need to adjust the energy and position, but we'll see what we get. Okay, so at first look at this image, it's way overexposed. These areas here are all burning out. If I put the exposure warning on, we end up with all sorts of red bits everywhere. So we need to take some energy out of the system. So I'll just take couple of stops off that to start with, like that, and we'll fire that again. There, that's getting there, but it's still a little burnt on this side, so I'm going to take yet another stop off, just like that. There, that's starting to saturate the colour now. That's the sort of thing that I'm looking for. Okay. So at this stage, it's probably worth just doing a bit of an experiment and turning off the background so that we can see exactly what's going on with all the reflections and things that we're getting on the foreground here. So I'm just going to turn off the studio head that's on the floor, and we'll just take a picture just with the orange illuminated. Okay, so we can see in this image we're getting quite a lot of contamination in the plastic tray, all the scratches and surface effects, etc. So an easy way to address all that is just to flag off part of this light. Part that's actually hitting the surface of the tray we don't really need. So in order to do that, what I've got here is just a piece of black card in this retort stand. I'm just going to place this around here somewhere. The exact placement of this will need to adjust. So we'll just have a test image. There we are, and straight away you can see that's made a huge difference to the amount of contamination that we've got. If I go to the previous image, we had this, and now we've got this. But you can also see that I'm probably masking off slightly too much of the light. If I go to the previous image, you can see the highlight just on the very edge here, which has all but disappeared on this version. So what I'm going to do is just move this back ever so slightly, like that. You don't need very much, and I'll just take another image. There, that's made that much better, I think. So the only thing to do now is just address this side of the orange, which is a little dark and just needs a little bit of fill-in. So for that, what I'm going to do is just use this card. So it's just a piece of black card with white on one side, and I've just clamped it to this piece of wood so that I can just place it here, and that will have the effect of just filling in the light. I just need to check in the viewfinder that it's not actually in the picture. There. Okay. There, excellent. So that's filled in this side quite nicely. So now if I just turn the background flash back on again, like that, We'll take another image. Good. And I think this is about ready for starting to apply some water to the image. So we've just got some water here, and what I'm going to do is just pour the water into the tray and at the same time fire the shutter, and we'll get some dynamic water effects, hopefully. Very good. So that has worked quite well, I think. You can see from the images that I've got here the way that the water refracts the light and gives you a really nice dynamic effect, I think. So I particularly like this one. So I think what we'll do is now take this image into Photoshop to do the minimal post-processing. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've imported the last of the images that we captured, which I think is quite a nice one. And the first thing I'm going to do is just make a duplicate of that layer. So I'll just duplicate the layer like that, and then I can work on this one, and if I make any mistakes I can always go back to the background. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just address any imperfections that we've got in the orange itself. And you can see here that there is a mark in the surface, and there's a few other marks down here. So I can just quickly get rid of those just with a clone tool. So I just pick a size for that. I'll leave it very soft, and holding down the Alt key I can pick where I'm going to clone from, and then go back and just clone over those areas. The same for these bits down here. There we are. I'm doing this relatively quickly, but you get the idea. Okay, I don't want to clean it up too much because I think it adds a little reality to it. There. Super. So I think I'll leave that as it is. So if I just switch between this copy, which I've altered, and the original, you can see the difference that makes. Okay. If I just zoom back out again, I think overall the quality of the colour and the quality of the image is pretty good straight out of the camera. So I think the next and possible final thing to do would just be to apply a crop. So I'm just going to pick a 16:9 ratio. I use this because it fits the videos, but you could pick a ratio which suits your subject. So I'll just adjust these handles just to create the composition that I want. With that done, we'll just click on OK. And there we have it. As I said at the start of the video, the colour saturation achieved really makes the image pop. And that, combined with the water dynamic, adds a bit of a story to it. This gives the impression of a very fresh looking image, which I think has worked very well. Okay, well, I hope you like seeing how I created that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.